I've had the base Samsung Galaxy S22 since launch and I have a lot to say about it. From first glance, it's more the same, but at the same time, a big improvement on the Galaxy S21's design. It's got a newer, more powerful SoC, the latest version of One UI, and Samsung's amazingly long software support. This will be my main phone for a long time. It is one of the best representations of Android in the market right now, but after a few months of using it, it's a mixed bag of a phone and I can't instantly recommend it. In this video, I'm going to rate each aspect of the S22, average it up, and see what we get. First, I want to talk about the design. Even after the new phone honeymoon phase, the S22 is beautiful. I know it looks similar to the S21, but to me, the build quality has massively improved and feels like the most premium Samsung phone I've ever held. The aluminum frame and the actual matte glass on the back feels so much better in the hand compared to the S21. It's easier to handle due to the slightly smaller body and is generally a very good size for most hands out there. This is a flat display, which I know most people prefer over the curved glass that you'll find on the S22 Ultra. Of course, you still have your IP68 dust and water resistance rating, which is great. The only downsides are that it is slightly uncomfortable to grip because of the sharp camera bump, which wasn't an issue on the S21, and the frame is glossy and can get scratched up or fingerprinty pretty easily. Because of all this, I do recommend using a case. As a whole, I would give this a solid 9 out of 10 in the design department, not a 10 mostly because it's not exactly a new look. As always, Samsung makes the best displays out there and the S22 is no exception. The AMOLED blacks and vibrant colors are absolutely fantastic here, and like the physical size of the phone, the 6.1-inch display is a great balance between size and usability. Great one-hand usability and is not too small for media consumption. It might not be the highest res display at 1080p, but I really wouldn't be able to notice if it was higher res. Of course, I have to mention the 120Hz refresh rate, which is as smooth as ever, but it isn't LTPO tech, which means a variable refresh rate will only go down as low as 48Hz and not as low as 1Hz like the S22 Ultra, so it's not quite as efficient. I personally really have no complaints with this display, and it's a perfect mid-size display for social media, video playback, and text reading. Coming from the gigantic Pixel 6 Pro, this is really the right display for me. Plus, the in-display fingerprint reader is actually really quick and I don't feel the need for an external physical reader. All in all, I give this display a 9 out of 10 with a few points marked off for the average resolution and the lack of LTPO. The S22 stereo speakers are located at the earpiece in a single bottom firing grille. They're powered by Dolby Atmos and I have no issues in terms of volume in both calls and media. Even in crowded areas, I don't have much issues calling people. The media volume can get so loud I'm worried I'm disturbing my next door neighbors. It's relatively high quality for both music and podcasts, but due to its small size, it's not exceptional by any means. That's especially because one side of the stereo audio is one tiny bottom firing grille that can easily get blocked. I'm not an audiophile, but there's nothing impressive about the speakers, so I give this a 8 out of 10. The S22 has a pretty standard array of cameras that you get on an Android phone these days, 3 rear lenses consisting of a 50 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10 megapixel telephoto. It's got OIS, tracking autofocus, and you can record up to 8K at 24 frames per second or up to 4K at 60 FPS. There's a single 10 megapixel front facing punch hole camera that can record up to 1080p at 60 FPS. In terms of stills, I honestly think the S22 series takes the best photos in the market. The photos are relatively balanced, realistic, and aren't as oversaturated as Samsung photos used to be. Samsung's zoom capabilities aren't number one in the market anymore, but you still count on it for high-res zoomed-in photos. This also contributes to how detailed each photo looks. More than anything, the S22 takes really good photos of people and their faces. On the latest Pixel and iPhone, I've noticed some over-sharpening and contrast issues, particularly with people's faces, but that's really not an issue on the S22. You're still going to run into some exposure balance issues when there's a bright window behind the subject. While the results are awesome, the camera speed is a big issue for me. There's always a slight delay when launching the camera app, and photo capture and post-processing does take a noticeable amount of time. Using the camera for a few minutes can result in high temperatures as well, which I'll talk more about later in the video. If you're looking to vlog at 1080p 60 FPS, this phone is a great option, as Samsung's video quality for both the front and the rear is a great all-arounder, including color balance and stabilization. Where it falls is if you try to record at 4K or above, there is a slight delay or hitch in the beginning which may ruin the moment you're trying to record. I also feel the phone starting to heat up very fast as soon as you start recording 4K. This is why I've chosen to keep my settings at 1080p 60 FPS at all times. So overall, while the photo and video results are great, the performance issue does have a big impact on the experience, which is why I give the cameras an 8 out of 10. Let's move on to the One UI 4.1 software experience, which this phone was the first to have. There's actually not too much of a difference with One UI 4.0, but like Android 12, which this is based on, you get a few more customization options. Most noticeable is the accent colors. Some first-party Samsung apps have seen some UI changes and improvements, especially the camera and gallery apps. But yeah, you're really not seeing much new with the software here. The only notable big feature is the ability to expand your virtual RAM using the phone's internal storage. You've seen this before from phones by Chinese OEMs, and it's basically the same here. It only helps with very basic tasks for your phone, so it won't really improve day-to-day speeds. Looking at the overall picture, the software experience is very good on the S22. It feels consistent, cohesive, and has all the customization you need to optimize your experience. On top of that, the S22 is getting some really long software support with up to 5 years of security updates, which includes 4 years of OS updates. You really can't get that anywhere else in the Android market. One of my few gripes with the software is all the extra Samsung apps and services you get that you might not be interested in and that you can't disable. So I would give the overall software experience a good 8 out of 10. I would have rated it a 9, but the performance issues brings it down a little bit. So let's talk about that. This US version of the S22 has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor, Adreno 730 GPU, 8 gigs of RAM, and up to 256 gigs of internal storage. I have no problems with launching and running most apps. Initially, this phone has a heating problem. Every time you use the camera for a couple minutes, do some 4K recording, multitask, or you play a more graphically intense game like Genshin Impact, the phone heats up almost immediately and hampers performance. It does cool down later on, but for 5 to 10 minutes, the phone's performance takes a big hit, which affects basic things like refresh rate, home screen navigation, and switching to your last few apps. It's probably a combination of the small size, the not quite efficient SoC, lack of proper cooling, and the 8 gigs of RAM instead of 12. It just doesn't run like a flagship should, and it affects the experience of using this phone. Now, 85% of the time I am perfectly happy with the performance here, but the remaining 15% are more than noticeable, and this is something I didn't experience as much with the S21 or the Pixel 6 Pro. Because of these issues, the S22 gets no higher than a 7 out of 10 for performance. Something even more disappointing than the performance is the battery life. The S22 has a 3700 mAh battery with up to 25 watts of fast charging. While I thought the slight downgrade from the S21's 4000 mAh battery won't be too big of a deal, I was dead wrong. Even after letting the OS adapt to my battery usage over the last few months, the S22 is barely a full day device. During weekends when I'm out and about with my phone, I'm almost always charging it twice a day to keep it alive. Everyone's screen on time is different, but I've been averaging just about 3 to 3.5 hours of screen on time. The wireless power sharing feature is always cool, but I don't have the good enough battery life to be able to share it with someone who actually needs it. Like many other phones, I get a full charge in just about 1 hour and 20 minutes. The 25 watt fast charging helps with giving it a quick boost when I need it, but 25 watts is nothing to brag about anymore. All in all, the battery gets a disappointing 6 out of 10. So putting everything together, the Galaxy S22 gets a C+, about a 7.9 out of 10. I personally love the S22. It's a beautiful phone with some amazing components, including the display, the cameras, and the software. However, the performance is a downer for a flagship phone with the latest SoC, and battery life just doesn't cut it. It's not a bad buy, but I would recommend doing some research and checking out some other options like the Realme GT2 Pro, the Pixel 6, or some last gen flagships for a better deal. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys on the next one.